Brambleton, it's Miss Cows, and today I am bringing you a list of books that are for certain people. When scary things happen to us, there are usually two groups of people when it comes to books. One group of people wants to read everything there is to know about it, and by learning more about it, it becomes less scary to them. The other group of people may want to use books to escape and to read funny books and happy books and books with really awesome endings. So today I am bringing you a list of books for those people that like to read everything there is to know when something scary happens to them. So the books that I'm going to tell you about right now are all about epidemics and pandemics. If you are more of a person that likes to use books to escape, pause this video, come back later this week because I have another video that'll go up about books with happy endings. So check those out. But if you're sticking with me, let's get started. Okay, so moving on to nonfiction books. Let's start with the book that pairs most nicely with our fiction recommendations. There is a book called An American Plague, The True and Terrifying Story of the Yellow Fever Epidemic of 1793 by Jim Murphy. And this book pairs really nicely with Fever 1793 by Laurie Halse Anderson because this gives you a factual account of what happened to the city of Philadelphia. So when you read the fiction book, it's more like a fictionalized personal account of what happened, but Jim Murphy tells you a lot about what the city of Philadelphia was doing, how they tried to stop the disease from spreading, what political changes happened because of the epidemic, and most interesting, I think, how they tried to treat the disease. There was a very famous physician named Dr. Benjamin Rush, who was very well known at the time, and he had a very controversial and dangerous way for treating the disease that Jim talks about in the book. So if you're interested in medical history, if you ever wanted to be a doctor or really like science, then I would definitely check out An American Plague, because I would say of all of the nonfiction books I have to recommend, this one most talks specifically about medicine and the development of medicine because of this epidemic. So then we're moving forward in history to 1918, and the next two books that I have to recommend are at the same time, so I'm going to just mush my review of those together. And the two books that I'm talking about are More Deadly Than War by Kenneth Davis and Very, Very, Very Dreadful by Albert Marin. And both of these books are about the Spanish influenza epidemic of 1918. They're very dramatic. This was one of the biggest pandemic at the time. And 1918, if you remember, was also when World War I was happening. So in particular, they have survivor accounts of what happened and then how the war was affected by this giant pandemic that happened. So it's a little bit history, a little bit science, and a little bit of medicine that are really talked about in both of these books. If I had to choose only one of them to read, I think I would probably choose More Deadly Than War, but Very, Very Dreadful by Albert Marin is also very good. So, your choice. And then finally, the last one that I have to recommend is a book called Red Madness, How a Medical Mystery Changed the Way We Eat by Gail Jarrow. And this is about a disease that I had never heard about until I read this book, and I actually can't think of another book that is about this disease. It's called pellagra, which had a very devastating effect on the American South in particular. And this is a disease that's not necessarily spread person to person, but is spread from eating bad food. And it talks about the physical impacts of having this disease, the cultural impacts, and some of the lasting results of that epidemic that we see in America today. So there's a lot of medical reports in this one, news articles, and some really surprising information about medical history and history about the American South. So states like Virginia, Mississippi, Georgia, North Carolina are all mentioned, and how this particular epidemic affected the American South. So if you're looking for something a little bit different, I would check out Red Madness. So these are my recommendations for books about epidemics. like I said, sometimes people really like to read books about things that scare them to help them have more knowledge, and the more knowledge they have, maybe the less scared you are. So if you are that person, I encourage you to check out any of these books. I also encourage you to feel free to reach out to me to talk about any of the books, or if you have any questions and need factual articles about our current pandemic, please reach out to me and I'm happy to help you find them. So until next time, my friends, happy reading, and we'll see you soon. Bye.